Hello guys, welcome back to a brand new video. Today I want to talk about a few things that help me show up in my sketchbook even on days when I don't feel motivated and how I try to stay consistent with my art practice and my creativity. So the very first thing that really helps me is creating an ambience for myself. The moment I sit at my desk, I love having a warm cup of tea beside me. I have different teas for different moods. Somehow my brain has started associating them with certain creative activities. For example, lemon ginger tea instantly reminds me of watercoloring and sketchbooking. Coffee is usually my morning journaling session, and chai is more for slow evening journaling or on days I just want to feel extra cozy and special. Secondly, I love keeping my materials affordable and approachable. I don't like making my art supplies feel too precious because then I feel like that they are very sacred and I don't use them. So even if I'm using a slightly nicer sketchbook, I'm completely okay using Dollarama paintbrushes alongside it. I do care a little more about my paints because I haven't had the best experience with affordable or cheaper paints from the dollar store, but overall I try to keep things simple and accessible. Another thing that I almost always advocate for is body doubling. This one is really important for me. I almost always have something playing in the background when I begin sketching, maybe a cozy vlog, an art tutorial, or someone creating alongside me. It helps me to ease into the process. Now, once I get into the flow, I usually pause everything and I fully focus on my art. But I also know that inspiration can quickly turn into comparison, especially when scrolling on social media or Pinterest or watching someone showing you your art supplies or their journaling videos. So, one thing that really helps me is setting a timer before you start. Give yourself maybe 5 to 10 minutes to gather inspiration, and once the timer goes off, you begin drawing. No overthinking, no waiting for motivation. And honestly, that's what today's video is all about, starting small and making creativity feel approachable again. You don't always need to fill an entire sketchbook or have an entire canvas to create a huge masterpiece. I'd definitely recommend thrifting over getting expensive supplies or really fancy materials if you're starting off, you're a beginner. Like this watercolor book I thrifted for $2 at Wins, and anytime that I feel that I'm stuck or I'm feeling really afraid or not able to begin my practice, I generally take a page from this watercolor book and begin drawing or begin painting. In today's video, I'm exactly going to be showing you how you can begin with whatever materials that you have. We are going to be creating small landscape or tiny paintings in our sketchbook or any paper material that you have. My goal here is to help you to think about how you can get into your flow, the flow that will help you reach your highest potential and your creativity without comparing your art to anyone else's. Another thing that helps me is allowing myself to go with the flow. If I'm journaling and suddenly feel like doodling or painting, I just do it. I count that as sketchbook time too. I don't always separate creativity into strict categories anymore. Like in my last video, I was showing you this new sketchbook that I got, and I got this journal specifically for writing. But the moment I began this sketchbook, or this journal, I felt like this is meant for me to draw in, to color in, and I went with the flow. Now, I did keep the left hand page to, write my feelings and write every day in it, but for now, I'm really enjoying drawing in it and coloring and painting in it, and that's exactly what I'm doing. This is an acrylic paint that I got from Dollarama. I'm not really happy with it, but I still went with the flow. Now, let's begin drawing and creating small sketches to begin with. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can paint these really easy watercolor paintings. Alright, so to begin this painting exercise, you're going to need a sheet of paper, a watercolor book, a sketchbook, or honestly any notebook that you enjoy drawing in. You will also need a set of watercolors. Whatever brand or colors you already have on hand will work. For this video, I am not going to be focusing too much on the exact shades of colors like a specific pink, yellow, or blue. I simply want you to work with the colors you already own and make this process feel easy and approachable. To start, take your paper and divide it into smaller sections using washi tape. If you don't have a washi tape, you can absolutely use a ruler and pencil to draw horizontal and vertical lines across the page. The idea is to divide the page into smaller squares. In my case, I divided mine into 16 tiny sections because I wanted each painting to feel small, simple, and less intimidating. Now, you can either complete all the little paintings in one sitting or simply choose one square and paint in it whenever you have time. And that is honestly the entire point of this exercise. You don't have to finish everything at once. You can always come back later and continue when you feel inspired again. Even if you don't have a watercolor paper, you can still do this using a regular sketchbook by dividing the page into smaller sections. Sometimes making the space smaller makes creating feels so much easier. To begin the first painting, I'm taking one small square and applying clean water all over it using my paintbrush. I'm basically making the surface completely wet. The paper that I am using here is a 300 GSM cotton watercolor paper. This paper holds water really well, but you can still try this technique with whatever paper you have available. I would recommend using a little thicker GSM paper just to make sure that your paper can hold the water. A 300 GSM watercolor notebook or a journal is also available in Dollar Tree, so you can also get your watercolor paper from there. You don't have to invest in something very expensive if you don't have the budget for it. Now, once the area is wet, I am using wet on wet watercolor technique. This simply means painting with the wet paint onto a wet surface. Now, I'm starting by painting a simple triangle shape and I try to create a tiny watermelon slice. Using a red watercolor, I'm filling in the triangle and gently lifting a little bit of paint to create softer highlights and variations. After that, I'm adding a thin line at the bottom of the watermelon with clean water and painting it with another shade of green to create the watermelon rind. Now, you can use any green that you have. There's no really any particular green mixture that I'm creating here. I'm just dipping my paintbrush into the green that is in my palette and I am focusing over practicing my watercolors rather than perfecting it at this moment. And honestly, that's what this video is truly about. It's not about mastering watercolor techniques or creating flawless paintings. It's about breaking the mindset that art always needs to be perfect, and instead of allowing yourself to create in small and simple paintings and simple ways to create joy in your sketchbook. Now, moving on to the next set of paintings, I am creating these tiny landscape studies that you see here. These are actually inspired by some simple landscape sketches I had previously painted on this watercolor sheet of paper. To begin, I first take clean water and completely wet the small rectangles that are divided on my page here. Once the surface is wet, I go in with two different shades of blue and softly paint the color across each rectangle. Since the paper is already wet, the paint naturally spreads and blends on its own, which creates a very soft sky like effect. Now, after laying down the blue paint, I take a napkin or a tissue and gently blot certain areas of the paint. This lifts some of the color off the paper and creates these soft cloud like shapes. Honestly, this is one of the easiest and most relaxing ways to paint clouds because you're letting the water and paint do most of the work for you. Then at the bottom of the rectangles, I use different shades of green and create loose upward brush strokes to represent grass. I move the strokes in different directions to make it look like the grass is flowing in the wind. There's really no strict rule here. I simply am layering different greens and allowing the painting to feel organic and free. Now, in the next row, I continue experimenting with clouds again, but this time instead of directly painting them, I lightly dip my brush into water and lift some of the pigment away. The water itself starts creating the cloud shapes naturally. Sometimes I use a cotton cloth, tissue, or napkin to lift extra color from paper. Now, it's a very simple technique, but it creates such a soft and beautiful result on this watercolor paper. Now, for the purpose of this video, I am showing all 16 rectangles being filled with one painting after the other. But ideally, this exercise is not something you need to finish in a single day. The whole idea behind this practice is that you return to it whenever you feel like creating. Consistency does not mean forcing yourself to sit down for hours and complete an entire painting in one go. Consistency can simply mean spending 5 minutes painting one tiny square in a week. It can mean coming back to your sketchbook slowly, gently, and without pressure. Now, as you see here, I'm essentially painting the same landscape over and over again. Clouds at the top and grass at the bottom. The composition stays exactly the same. The only thing I'm changing is the color palette. Sometimes I use lighter blues, sometimes darker blues mixed with black, and sometimes I experiment with pinks and purples instead. The technique remains exactly the same throughout all these little paintings. Every single square, I start by wetting the paper, then I add watercolor, and finally, I lift some of the color using a tissue paper or a cotton cloth to create clouds. It's repetitive, simple, and honestly very relaxing and calming. And I think that's something I've learned about creativity. Showing up matters more than making something perfect. Showing up doesn't always mean completing a masterpiece. Sometimes it simply means sitting with your sketchbook for a few minutes. Some days creativity may look like painting tiny clouds, other days it may just mean swatching your paints, drawing random lines, or organizing your art supplies, even. Sometimes decluttering your art shelf or revisiting old sketchbook is also a form of reconnecting with your creativity. One thing that helps me personally is looking back at older paintings or drawings I made maybe a year or even 2 years ago. Instead of constantly searching for new inspiration, I often redraw the same things again and again, like these tiny landscapes. They are all essentially the same painting, just done in different colors. And for me, that is also what consistency can look like. One thing I've learned over the years as a creative is that I have almost never felt completely ready to create. I've never felt perfectly motivated, perfectly talented, or prepared. I've never had the best art supplies, the perfect circumstances, or the ideal setup to create art, and honestly, I still don't. My drawings are far from perfect, and if you've seen my sketchbooks before, you already know that they are messy, unfinished paintings, uneven brush strokes, and so many imperfect sketches. But over the years, one thing has become very clear to me, that showing up and doing even the smallest creative act will always matter more than waiting for the perfect moment to arrive. So maybe for you, consistency might mean drawing once a week. Maybe it means sketching for 10 minutes, even every single day. Maybe it means painting every day. Whatever it is, let it be your version of consistency, because consistency is not a standard that somebody else decides for you. It is a promise you make to yourself to create in your sketchbook. So grab your paintbrush, open your notebook, and just begin. Start painting, start sketching, start doodling, just go for it. That experience, that peaceful moment of creating something just because you want to, is honestly one of the most beautiful things you can give yourself. So, whether you've been drawing for years or you're just a beginner, allow yourself to create again, allow yourself to enjoy the process. I hope these tiny landscape and these tiny drawings inspire you to pick your sketchbook and create with whatever you already have. Thank you so much for being here today. I will see you in the next video very soon.